I planed this storefront here down to the inner scribe line, and then I cut off the corner, or what was round, and turned it into a square, and then epoxied a piece of hickory onto it. And then I glued on a sort of a frame on the outside. The frame is made from oak, and that piece of white paper you see there is rice paper. And the rice paper helps to create an increased amount of friction between the oak and the walnut, because the two pieces were very smooth. The oak frame had made the drawer front here a little bit bigger than the hole that I had cut out for the drawer. So I gradually trimmed down the oak frame so I can get the drawer front to fit into the cutout that I had made, and then find the high spots on the cutout and remove it slowly to make a continuous grain drawer front. For the drawers, I'm using a half-blind dovetail in the front and a through dovetail at the back. Cutting the pin side of the half-blind dovetail is very similar to cutting a stop dado, except the stop dado is in the shape of a dovetail. Once I checked that all the parts of the frame would fit together nicely, I was ready to take it apart and put a dado along the bottom to receive the bottom of the drawer. The bottom is made from 1/4-inch birch plywood, and I've cut a rebate around the outside to slide into the grooves. I glued a piece of thin mahogany onto the bottom of the drawer to function as the drawer pull. I also put poplar dowels to the back of the drawer to help me adjust the depth of the drawer. Alright, so the piece didn't quite split the way I thought it would, so I had to cut that piece off and do a quick repair. Almost as good as new. I was a bit more careful the second time around. I decided to experiment with the joint here between the inner frame here and the leg of the workbench. I think it most closely resembles that of a finger joint, but the grains are perpendicular to each other. I have this joint fitted together, and I have this joint here fitted together. And I have the small tenon and dado fit on this side. And once this is in place, I can use that to determine where the tenon, or how the tenon should be cut to fit this dado. I used a knife to mark the thickness of that tenon. I suppose another name for this tenon shape could be a stopped rebate. This was the last piece of walnut I had cut for this project, and I have to say that walnut is a great wood to work with. Just the way that the feedback of the wood through the tools, it feels great. So it might seem a little strange to fit the tenon into the dado rather than the dado onto the tenon. Well, that's because this piece here isn't the original piece. This is the original piece, and here's the tenon that I had cut out. So this thing was already fitted together when I changed my mind about how this back piece should look. The radius for the inner piece here, as well as the shelf backings, are all about 6 inches. It just happened to be a compass that I had laying around. And just like the shelf backing, I took a chunk out after the curve, and that chunk happened to be straight. I really think this adds to the feel of openness that I wanted with this workbench. Those 3 holes are for the vice's guide bars and screw. The thought of cutting those things shorter did cross my mind. I'm drilling out the knots here so I don't have to deal with it while I'm planing. And once that piece I'm working with is finished, I'll go ahead and trace in this case, a thin piece of rosewood out. And once that's done, I'll go ahead and chop this out, and then glue the rosewood piece on there, wait for the rosewood to dry, and then plane it down, and that's pretty much a repaired knot. Alright, so nobody likes sanding, so let's just get this over with. The key to good sanding is sanding with the grain and not putting too much pressure on the sander. I think one of the keys to good routing is remembering where not to route. For example, I have to skip over some area around these dovetail pins because the dovetail backing have shoulders. Project with this many pieces, I'm not going to be able to fit it all together and glue it all together at once. So I've broken it up into parts. The first thing I did was I glued this footing to this leg, and I checked that this angle here is at 90 degrees. This foot and this leg is not glued together. I'm going to glue up this bottom part first. So I have it sort of mocked up. So I put these cars on to make sure that everything is sort of staying square relative to each other. I think I'm pretty close to getting this finished. I'm checking sure everything's at 90 degrees. Alright, so that was very hectic. I managed to square everything up. This piece is glued, this piece is glued, but I'm going to wait until the glue dries and then I'm going to go ahead and glue these pieces on as well. I later replaced these screws with oak dowels. Before I glued the front face on, I drilled a series of pilot holes. Notice the pilot holes on the inner frame. Those pilot holes now function as a guide, so that I can use dowels to reinforce the joint between the front face and the cherry top, and the front face and the leg. Oh, by the way, if you ever had to cut a bunch of dowels of the same length, this little jig works pretty well. Alright, so basically the rest of these three pieces need to come together at the same time, so this is a very stressful time. Okay. Very stressful time. This is the part of the glue that's probably the toughest. Racing against the glue drying. I think all the parts are in. Well, yeah, that's probably the scariest part of gluing. But the bench is almost done, and there's sort of a weird feeling when I'm at this stage of finishing a project. Not weird, just strange. Everything's now finally glued together. The last thing I'm going to add or fit is this the tool well bottom.
and this is just a piece of pine. I put a rebate on 3 sides of it, and it's sort of snugly into where the tool well should be. I've let quite a bit of overhang here, so I'm just going to put a couple of screws in to hold it on the bottom of the tool well. And what I still need to do is trim these tenons that are sticking out of the top here. I don't know if you can see them. I still need to trim a lot of glue lines. It's a pretty good workout. I still need to soften a lot of these edges, particularly around the top. And I still need to trim the dovetail here because when I made them, they're slightly proud. So I'm going to flush them out with the plane. And let's go ahead and apply a finish. And the finish I'm going to use is a boiled linseed oil.
With a project this size, sometimes it feels like the loose ends are always popping up, but I think the key is to just be persistent.
I started this project June of 2016 and I completed about February 2017. So it took about 8-9 months. And I wasn't working straight that 8-9 months. I would try to take weeks off because basically I would hit a wall and everything looks like crap. So if you want to build something similar, I hope you can use this bench project as a jump off point. And the plans are available to you absolutely free. Just follow the link in the description. And if you have any questions or comments, just let me know. And also if you spot mistakes in the plans, let me know and try to get those fixed as soon as possible. So thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this project and I'll see you next time.